Hello everyone, this is Mars. It's great to be here. And today we will talk about how to identify malware in factory program files. So we leverage AI and combine AI to the malware world to perform kinds of detection, make every different factory can detect those malware without the frequency updated. So before we deep dive into our content, the key question is, why we kick off this research? Why this research is so important? We review the factory situation. We know one key point is, usually operating systems in OT environment cannot be updated, cannot be patched. And also, those IT security solutions applied to OT environment, they usually facing a key problem is, they cannot update virus pattern so quickly. But like in IT world, those virus patterns usually update per day, per hours. So that's key questions. We want to make the factory, those OT environment can be protected always, and all lower false positive in their environment, make the operation keep running is the key objective. So that's why we want to leverage AI. And also we want to leverage AI in the malware detection to overcome this problem. But before that, we also evaluated different research in the past 3 to 5 years. We want to know what kinds of malware detection plus AI in the academic world. And in the 2020, detecting malware based on dynamic analysis techniques using deep graph learning. In this research, they leverage control flow graph to the different Windows API, file, command line, PowerShell, and in the registries with the word embedding to the embedding process behaviors there. And however, they also make the accuracy rated to the over 96%, but they don't have the process chain in there. And also, in their research, they need to have the human aspect to evaluate all OT-related API function they can leverage to control flow graph. This is impossible things. And in 2024, this research with the self-supervised learning on the EDR event logs is a commercial research. They leverage commercial event log from the CrowdStrike to do the data, to build a database, a basis, to leverage NLP learning to learn to make the malware detection and frequency behavior detection with semantic detection. It's very good things, but one key point is it's too heavy. For the performance issue, almost equal to the effective usage, memory usage, CPU usage with the transformer. It's too heavy, cannot and afraid hard to apply to the OT environment. And also don't have a relationship with the parent-child process. In 2021, this NLP-based entry behavior analysis for malware detection research. And in this research, they leverage a graph-based DAG to leverage a different content, including the registry, network, process, DNS. It's a very good result there. Inspires mainly for this research, but also without the process chain layer. But why the process relationship is so important for the semantic detection? It's a key question because as our evaluations, we saw too many OT attacks, so specific attacks. They leverage the leaf of land attacks. And also, if we don't have a process chain, we are hard to determine those leaf of land attacks because we only have single binary behavior. Unfortunately, those single binary behavior usually will be a benign things. So that's why we need to have the process relationship layer. And also, in the leaf of land attacks, the general IT solution is hard to detect too. So that's why it's so important. And also, we take a look at some case here. So in the case study 1 here, we have a SVC host. Yeah, it's great, like the general OS native service. In the SCVC H0st.exe will be a backdoor. It's very easy to identify that. But in the case study 2, actually it's a standalone leaf of attack's behavior. But if we only look at the last process, scilc.exe, we are hard to identify its attack. But if we know the process relationship from explorer.exe to JavaScript to LUN.VBS, we can identify the whole process chain layer to identify this is an attack, especially OT environment. And also, in the case study 3, by Microsoft Defender attack surface reduction policy, also inspires a lot of things. Is we can leverage this policy to detect behavior-based things. And also, we know that we have process chain, but process chain capability chain is not equal to the straight behavior. Why? Because we know in the modern IT solutions, almost 80% of suspicious behavior generated by OT-specific programs. Something benign, something suspicious, but also only 20% attacks can be identified in those multi-layer AV and EDR solutions. In the intersection with those will be the OT and ISIS attack. And also, leaf of land is a good example in this intersection part. And also, we also have another question arise here is, we know the cyber kill chain here, but in the IT solution, they usually only can identify this is attack from the persistence to later movement to the impact part. If we can make this detection to the early stage, we can prevent those attacks on OT environment earlier. So we have a problem can be fixed, can be figured out is, we want to leverage the loss detection rule as a base or attack surface reduction policy to solve the problem. But if we only leverage human right policies, it's painful because too many policies we need to write thousands, millions. So the question arises, can AI do that, can help us? And also we consider the those mentioned idea for NLP learning, those previous research inspires. We combine those limitations, requirement from the OT environment to the our AI model. We want to solve these ICS challenges. But reality in OT environment is, those threat actors usually will abuse those benign OT-specific behavior in the OT environment. And also, those attacks is difficult to identify, to detect by IT solution. But also, some benign OT and ICS applications also can still have a possibility to trigger suspicious behavior layer, and which can be considered attacked by IT and antivirus or EDR solution. So we know the one key point is we cannot only trigger or collect the information, intelligence, telemetry for those suspicious and malicious part. We need to collect behavior for the benign software or benign behavior that to our base. So the key point here is our goal for our AI and machine learning model here. We want to have a single AI model and can learn the real data, no matter the suspicious, benign software or malicious, combined into one, and also mostly lightweight. We know that everything in OT environment is so their computing power is limited. So we cannot deploy the very heavy model in OT environment. So mostly lightweight. So usually those IT solutions with AI, usually too heavy or deploying in the cloud. So we have a limitation for our model here, be lightweight. And also, this model needs to be learned the behavior from the real world OT telemetry data. So inspired that, we leverage projecting benign or suspicious behavior into the or embedding vectors to help us identify those relationships for the behaviors. So here is our architecture for the model. for the whole detection scenario. So we collect a different telemetry data from the bottom layer. And we have over 500 suspicious expert rule first as a first layer. Why do we have an expert rule in the first layer? Because in the OT environment, we cannot simulate, or we cannot collect every telemetry data because of the limitation for the computing power, for the resources. So we need to identify the top priority behavior we want to collect. Those behavior including the suspicious, benign, and 100% malicious. And also collect that to the suspicious telemetry data as a trend of the behavior sequence. And use this sequence actually will be the process trend, capability trend, input to our model, suspicious to vector model. Input this model and our output will get what kinds of malware, what type belongs to. We can identify what kinds of malware layer, what kinds of worm, what kinds of ransomware. We can leverage our model to identify that. And good news is we don't need to update this model very high frequency, because we're training the old variant malware in this model. And deep diving into our core of our model is a very simple word is we use the actor representations to learn to train the previous, now, and next process as a learning base. Because we know we cannot identify a single process as a malicious. We need to train everyone. We need to train the previous one and next one to identify that as our core model here. So we have an experiment here. We have over 500 suspicious rule layer, and this data can be the EDR sensor feedback, Sigma rule feedback, things feedback, or Windows event log, because we will have a formalization process layer. And also, in our experiments, we collected almost 1 year's data and totaled 2 million benign, malicious, suspicious telemetry data from the real-world OT environment. And we have a model to the NVIDIA computing resources. And also, we have a behavior semantic index process first. We collected over 3,000 unduplicated IT and OT malware from the ViceTotal. So we learn it like this. We collect the ViceTotal sample here as an indexing, and also to fit those suspicious behavior filtered to our expert rule into the suspicious to vector model. Then in model, we'll perform a semantic indexing to figure out what kinds of malware type, what kinds of threat group have what kinds of behavior layer as a sequence. Then we can use our sample. We want to check input to this model to query the suspicious trend. Then we can get the result, benign, or suspicious, or malware, actually, and also we can identify what kinds of malware layer we can use this. And in our research result in this testing, we captured 12 malware and target from the 50,000 samples. So we can identify these to different variant, a real one and real malware sample. So take a look for those case study here for variant want. And in our vectorized figure here, we can identify each behavior one by one as a sequence. We chain this from, you will see the MITRE TID and a ransomware behavior as tag because this is our absolute source here to chain this. So we can identify this one have this vector like this, one by one. And also, this behavior can be explained. Usually some AI model, you just input the data and you get output is malicious, but you don't know why it is malicious or suspicious. But in our model, because we have a baseline for the Asper rule, and each baseline have a specific behavior, suspicious part, we can trigger that. So actually, we can identify what kinds of behavior belongs to this one. Like this one try to register itself as a boot up service for persistence, and also register as a default network proxy to make this for the one here. And for the case study 2, also another one layer, but still different behavior chain layer. And also we can retaliation representation for this to the over one part to this behavior. And we know what kinds of behavior layer, like a registry, ransomware behavior, like clean up registry, or like a write registry to make it explorer, to make the internet setting, or make proxy enable. So we can identify this as malware, and we know what kinds of behavior there. So we not only can leverage this model to identify this is malware, and also can help us to know what kinds of behavior led and help us to do the action for the response. Like we can recover, we can clean, we can check the registry, process, or everything else can help us that. And also for this one, it also has a super hidden system file layer to prevent victims steal a binary file on NTFS by explorer. And also this one trying to register instead of as a boot up service for persistence. So it's wipe out the default proxy cache on Internet Explorer. So still one, but still by different behavior, by different vector, different threat group. And also, we combine those two variant one type. We know that one key point is they have a common behavior layer. So we can identify this as a common one behavior, but still something different by different other behavior to identify different as a different one group. So that's what will be an experiment part for the sample. And now we know the key point things is we can leverage this model. We can use this model to detect the real malware as a single model and pre-trained model in the local part. You don't need to connect it to internet, and you can identify this what kinds of malware there. You also can handle this issue. You don't worry about any data leak issue. Other people know what kinds of malware in your environment. You don't worry about that. So also, this model not only can identify the malware, but also including layer variant also can be identified that because we make this as a behavior-based part. We don't worry about that. If there's some variant happened, we cannot detect it. We don't worry about that. And also, we leverage those different variant hacking tool as an Asper rule layer. So we know it is to make the detection capabilities are always available for the OT environment with a limiting computing power and computing resources. That's the important part because every time we want to figure out a new method or new proposal, we will think about twice for what kinds of behavior or this can be applied to OT environment, can be applied to semiconductor, can be applied to automotive, food and beverage, or energy sectors. Why? Because they still have a different operation layer. We want to have a single one model to support in a different environment layer. And also, in our experiment, we only focus on to leverage this model to the malware detection to identify what kinds of malware layer. But in the future, in our plan, we also can make this model to learn more type OT data, like a script, like a PowerShell usage, but also only focus on OT environment data, or some script like only using OT environment as an input to learn this, identify more type OT malware, and leverage this architecture can help us to identify many things. So we know the AI training happened here, but every time everything different research performed by our team, we usually think about we really need to leverage AI, or we really make this AI can help us to identify an OT environment. We will do a lot of experiment there, and this is just one of that. So I hope this can help you guys to inspire a different AI plus malware detection in OT environment things. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you. I believe I have a few times, so if I have any question, come up to my mic.
Is this model available for us to test if we want to put it in our environment? Number one question. Second is that when we'll deploy or use this model, do we need to connect to internet or any other network to be ready with the real-time data?
No, in our plan, this model is a vibration model totally. So we only deploy this model in local. We now connect to internet. We now connect to other devices. It's a single model deployed in a single machine. It's pre-trained model. Yeah, so we just only update this model. But in our mind, this model, we usually change this maybe 3 months or half year one time, because this model already can detect a different variant malware type. So we don't need to so high frequency to update model in our plan.
And a corollary to this is to collect the data or the telemetry. What is it that we require in the OT environments so that this model has the real-time logs or real-time data to check at?
Yeah, because we collect those data. We collect those telemetry data from a single machine and filter the expert rule. We will figure out what kinds of behavior there into the model. So the loss data collect only used for the model filtering and matching only.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. No other question? So thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.